Is there a more frequently asked question than, do I deserve to be loved? No, seriously, I don't know the answer. Absolutely everyone has pondered this query at one point in their lives. And if you claim you haven't, well, here's this. Why is this such a universal experience, you may ask? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. We all suck. Not a single person is without flaw. Don't believe me? The Rock Johnson, has a massive ego. Sydney Sweeney is a woman. Mother Teresa didn't even have kids. Martin Luther King Jr. was a nice guy that did a lot of amazing things. Also, he cheated on his wife. Despite this revelation, many maintain the mindset that they themselves are especially Krieg. Thus, they are not deserving of Poonanny. However, the remedy to this fallacy is simply this graph. It's easy to look at this and say, 51% of men aged 18 to 29 are single? Then what chance have I? But if you look a little closer, you might realize, hey, that's a lot of single maidens. The reality is that the bar is so low that even a lowly cherub such as yourself can one day find a soulmate. So yes, you are deserving of love.
Yes, I deserve box, so why won't they give it me? They hoard it from me merely because I'm a sub-8 male.
The incels are in my walls again. Before we can answer the question, do I deserve to be loved, we must first define the word deserve. To merit, be qualified for, or have claim to blah blah blah, that's not what I be talking about. While that definition may be correct, and I may be a stooge perchance, it's important to dig deeper into the nuances of what it means to merit something. First off, we need to recognize that the posing of the question, do I deserve to be loved, harkens to an instilled insecurity in the ponderer's silly little noodle. A common example of this would be catching sight of a fair maiden and thinking, I wish to approach, yet in my feeble heart I know she is too gorgeous to settle for a lowly fool such as I. But goddamn, look at those Tomb Raider tatas. Translating into normal, and not insane terms, many believe they are undeserving of love because they see themselves as unattractive in many ways. Yet we've all seen ogre-esque men with writhing honeys before. While an imp should not expect to end up with a succubus, there is always a non-zero chance that it happens. With that, let's bring up the double-edged sword that is standards, which I will explain using the hellscape that is dating apps. If you go on Tinder, you are beset by a cursory list of qualities about a person. So you look through it, see one thing you don't like, and you toss them into the void. The thing is, real life doesn't work like this. Like, at all. However, our culture has been swallowed by the idea that a person needs to pass a checklist in order to earn our attention. Therefore, our minds latch on to all of our flaws. Sure, I'm not bad looking, but I'm also not beefed and muscular. Yeah, I make a decent salary, but my penny is an innie. This mindset leads us to believe if we are not perfect, people aren't going to swipe right, as it were. And that is true on dating apps. But when you meet someone in your everyday life, let's say a coworker, you get to talking, joke around, and find out you share a lot of common interests. Then, one thing leads to another, and you go out on a date. Imagine you discuss politics, and you two disagree. On a dating app, this would be a complete non-starter. But with someone you already have an established relationship with, it's more of a warning sign, something to keep in mind down the road. The reality is that once you already have a baseline relationship established, things you once thought were deal breakers are now just quirks to work through or things you realize don't matter. Even just approaching a stranger and having a conversation is enough to build that foundation. It becomes harder and harder to break this trust and rapport. Thus, things you believe would lead people to lose interest in you are actually, usually, inconsequential. Insecurity leads you to believe your flaws make you undeserving of love or simply unlovable, but you'd be surprised by how many people there are that would be willing to look past them. Rejection is not epic. Alright, I get it. I'm sorry, but someone needed to say it, okay? Make me peek my goddamn microphone. Insecurity is the driving force that leads us to avoid putting ourselves out there because it makes us believe that rejection is not just likely, but certain. However, the reality is that insecurity only serves as a shield from being let down, rather than a tool for you to build a better life. Imagine you're at Duck Club and you see a shoddy most fine. You need to realize that, no matter how out of your league she may be, your chances are only zero if you decide not to shoot your shot. In this case, insecurity is shielding you from the pain of being rejected just as much as it's shielding you from landing a baddie. Even if, hypothetically, your chances of her slurping you are 10%, that means if you approach 11 women, your chances of being, oh my god, you dumb bitch, your chances of being slurped up are actually 110%. Do the math. Don't do the math. There are a few things more universal than the fear of rejection, and we've all heard the boilerplate advice of, what's the worst that could happen, they say no? The problem with generic sayings like this is that you hear them repeated so many times that they begin to lose all meaning. Like saying a word over and over and over and over and over. If you haven't had a romantic relationship in a while, haha. I mean, I haven't had one either. But haha. Just think about how hard dealing with loneliness has been and ask yourself, would I trade a dozen embarrassing encounters with women to not feel this way? But do you know what would never reject your advances? That's right, the like button. Smash it, make it some eggs in the morn, or else you will perish with no one there to clench your hand as you pass to the great beyond. With the mediocre rise of manosphere influencers who shall remain nameless, like Andy Todd and Snookus, many men are under the impression that they need to be Greek gods in order to snatch. In truth, that conception could not be further from reality. Let's take a look at some numbers. No wait, don't click away. According to Pew Research, 51% of men aged 18 to 29 are single, while just 32% of women of the same age don't have bitches. And when you compound that with how many singles are actually willing to mingle, those numbers shrink down to 35% and 20%. It's easy to peep these numbers and feel hopeless, but if you look at them from a different perspective, you can glean the opposite. You don't need to be better than 90% of men, you don't even need to be better than 35% of bros. You just need to be in the 15th to 25th percentile. And when you look at how many guys are flocking to charlatans, like those two people I didn't name, you can realize that it's not actually very difficult. With all that said, it is very important that we distinguish deserving from entitlement. These are two very different sides of the same coin. Speaking of coins, here's a terrible analogy. Feeling deserving means walking down the street, seeing a quarter at your feet, and thinking, after all your hard work, "Aw hell yeah, that's sweet." However, entitlement means looking at passersby, constantly thinking and asking why no one is hucking quarters at your thigh? Don't ask me why I wrote a nursery rhyme. Frankly, I know it's a terrible waste of temporal passage. Anyways, the best and most topical way to exemplify this is with the dreaded faction, incels. People who are involuntarily celibate. Once a misguided soul travels down the path of inceldom, they come to a fork in the road. The good, jubilant path of feeling they don't deserve to be loved because they're an uggo destined to die alone, simply yearning to be part of a community that they belong in, and the dark, reviled path of believing they are entitled to vagina and women are demonic for not bestowing it upon them. Not only is this way of thinking loony, but it is also wholly counterproductive, as the worst way to find love might just be hating the group of people you're attracted to. Because, at the end of the day, that is where entitlement leads. Hatred. By feeling you deserve more than you have, that will shift the focus away from you and the things you can control to the things you cannot control. If I get rejected by a woman, which could you imagine? I could use that as an opportunity to reflect on what I can do differently, like getting better at having conversations, knowing the right things to ask, and how to generally approach the ladyfolk better. Or I could be entitled, think I'm already good enough, claim the game is rigged, women are shallow, I shouldn't even try. By trying to improve myself, I am also improving my chances of finding a girl that doesn't find me absolutely revolting. But by being entitled, I am shunning personal growth and lowering my chances by believing there is no hope in the first place. Even if you believe women are shallow, only craving money and big penises, you know that there are women out there that just aren't like other girls. If you believe only 1% of femoids are decent, then just approach 100 of them, gink. I mean, that's no easy task, but imagine if you put half the time you spent wallowing into grinding Riz. Feeling hopeless will only lead you to exactly where you are right now, and if you are okay with that, then fine. But one does not become involuntarily celibate by not caring about being single. From the perspective of insecurity, your flaws are always going to be glaring, and your strengths are always going to be overshadowed and undersold. Through that lens, you'll find yourself in a self-fulfilling prophecy. For example, you think you're too thick to get a GF, so you don't try to get a GF, so you don't get a GD GF. Instead of trying to accept yourself or lose weight, you decide to rot in a puddle of despair. What you actually need to do is anything. You can try to get in shape or focus your energy on improving yourself in other ways, like getting better at conversing with people. Insecurity is a never-ending cycle that leads you to exactly where you are at this moment. It will tell you you're not good enough and that there is no way to change that. And the only way to break that cycle is by telling that motherfucker you know where his family lives. It just takes a little push to get yourself going. So here you go, sport. If you do not want me to push you off of the Eiffel Tower, then you have to watch this video about how money can't buy happiness. It's pretty good. Yep, no, that's it. That's the only way to keep your legs from being powderized. And while you're at it, feel free to watch through my back catalog of videos. You won't want to miss it. You won't want to miss it. You won't want to miss it.